Okay, I'd like to call to order the Fort Wayne Public Transportation Corporation Board of Directors meeting for Thursday, March 19th, 2026. Present, we have all members except Jesse Kramer and Raleigh Booker. I know Jesse, I just talked to him. I think he's going to be here, at least when he's running a little bit late. Before we get to the adoption of the agenda, I do want to note we are going to have one amendment. We're going to delete under old business the B, subsection B. We're going to move that to next month. So I know we have at least a couple people that may need to not leave early, but leave expeditiously. So we're going to try to move this along tonight. I would make an amendment or would request a motion to accept the agenda in its amended format.
Second.
Who made the first? You made the first. We had three people. I said we're going to get out here quick, and everybody's jumping on the amendments. Okay. Motion by Kyle. I'm going to give it to Nelson.
Yeah, please do, because I thought he said.
You can get it next time, Sharice. Anyone opposed? I'm sure not. No. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Thank you very much. Next item is reading, correcting, and approval of the minutes from the previous meetings. I believe we have the minutes from the February 19th meeting, as well as Planning and Development Committee meeting of February 24th, External Stakeholder Relations Committee meeting of March 11th, and Executive Governance Committee of March 16th.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Sharice, a second by Nelson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Same sign. Show is approved. Next item is item 4, Board Committee Reports. Executive Governance Committee, we did meet earlier this week and in executive session. Nothing else to report of significance other than that we met. Next meeting is June 15th at 3:30. External Stakeholder Relations Committee, Jesse, not here yet, but I know that there was a meeting. I know
Yeah, we met. Our office was there, and the minutes are in the packet. I don't think there's anything like significant to report from that meeting. But it was good.
Thank you. Next meeting is April 3rd. Performance Oversight and Monitoring. Nelson.
No report. Next meeting is May 11th, 3:30.
Planning and Development Committee, Sharice.
We met on the 24th. The minutes are in the packet. We discussed the early draft of the strategic plan. We talked about the 5310 program, which I think was later on the agenda, and a little bit about the main pool program.
Thank you. And Transit Planning Committee, John.
No meeting this month. The next meeting is April 13th, 1:30 in the afternoon.
Next item then is the General Manager's CEO report. John.
Well, in the interest of keeping it brief, I want to focus on what's really key and a topic I wanted to share with the board tonight for your information really at this point is what's happening with fuel. Given the conflict in Iran, I know we're seeing the price at the pump increase significantly. Obviously that's going to have an effect on Citilink. So earlier today, I want to thank Jason and Latasha for always the good information that they have available. We buy 247,000 gallons of diesel fuel annually. We, in prior years, purchased a large number of gasoline gallons as well for the small minibuses. So the buses that are used in access use gasoline, and that's the big fixed route buses that use diesel fuel. But with outsourcing paratransit service, we will no longer have the gasoline expense. We still will buy some gas for our staff vehicles and for our DVA, the fixed route buses. For our diesel, We budgeted at $3 per gallon. As of today, the market rate for diesel is around $4 per gallon. However, we have contracted for 53% of our diesel need for this year, varying by the supplier from $2.01 per gallon to $2.35 per gallon. And so we'll be able to buy diesel fuel at that price until about September. Well, Jason continues to monitor the market every time he needs to buy fuel. And if we can get a better rate off contract, we will buy it then and there. I don't anticipate that that's going to happen anytime soon. But we know for this year, we're in relatively good shape with our fuel. Gasoline, however, is not under contract. We think we'll use around 30,000 gallons per year this year. So I think potentially based upon cost and use, we could maybe see fuel costs coming in over budget by the end of the year. We'll keep you posted throughout the year on how we're progressing on that. And of course, there are implications for next year's budget. It is time for Citilink to issue a formal fuel bid. But because of the complexity with our underground storage tank project, we are now using temporary fuel storage tanks that kind of lock us into a supplier, right? So we want to wait to do the bid until that project is complete, and maybe the geopolitical issues across the globe will resolve by then. Fingers crossed that we can do a fuel bid down the road to get a good price for fuel. So I just wanted to share that with you. I wondered if you might have fuel on your minds, and it's been a while since we talked about it.
Question.
Yep.
Is our contract with Tidal Water have any right on that?
They buy their own fuel at their rate, and there's no escalator that I'm aware of for fuel increases. That's a cost that they will absorb. Yeah. Good counsel on that. Thank you.
I mean, the only would be if there's some crazy act of God or something like a pandemic, something
Yeah,
of that nature.
there might be sort of force majeure types of.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Force majeure.
Yeah.
Somebody was a lot greater.
Beyond fuel, unless there are other questions, you may notice there are a lot of faces on the screen looking at us today. So a little bit further on the agenda, we'll receive a presentation and an opportunity to ask questions with Community Enterprise for Van Pool. So we've got several folks here. When we get to that on the agenda, maybe we can start with them introducing themselves, and then we'll go from there. That's my report.
Okay, thank you, John. Next item is the CFO Controller Report. Latasha.
Good evening, everybody. You are full myself up on just cheers. We have the February 2026 financial in the packet. I believe everyone also got the statement that earnings that was originally listed in the packet as well. No. It was also emailed out earlier. Just a few highlights as usual. We were within the budget this year. We did operate within the budget, and we are positive, our net earnings are positive before the unbudgeted items. Total expenses were $3 million, which was about $300,000 less than the budget of $3.3 million. And just some of the cost savings that we experienced, and I'll remind you again that this is the budget that was approved and this is not the amended with the access contract included. So we are still experiencing cost savings in wages and fringes, obviously lower staff members, fuel, and less vehicle repairs because of the outsourcing. We also did experience some cost savings in professional services and maintenance costs and capital project timing, but hopefully that will ramped up in the next month because we did get our 3 hybrid buses, which was in the packet, I think the CEO report. So we got that earlier this month. Our total expenses was higher than the prior year, and this is just due to the access outsourcing offset by the lower wages and fringes, materials and supplies, and other professional services. When it comes to revenues, we did 3.1 million year to date, and that was short of the budget just because we had lower overall operating and capital expenses. We also are experiencing lower ridership so far this year. The overall expenses were still higher than the prior year, and that's due to the lease revenue that we are receiving from Tidewater, offset by the lower ridership. We are still have lower ridership revenue from the prior year. And that is the most of the highlights from the operating budget. As I said, capital, we still were pretty much a low amount there, only about 15,000. And then our cash position at the end of February was 3.4 million, which is about 2 months of expenses. Are there any questions on the financial report? If not, we do have the interim record of transmittals and also the February record of transmittals that we need approval.
I move to approve the record of transmittals for the month of February and from March 1st to March 20th.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Sharice, a second by Nina. Or do I have any further discussion on that regard? Seeing none, I'll call the questions. All those in favor of approving the record of transmittals for February, confirm record of transmittals March 1st to March 20th, 2026, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, same sign. Show that approved. Thank you. All right, next item, we have resolutions. There are none. Number 8, old business. We have a regional van pool program overview. Just why we have this big crowd up on the screen.
Sure, and I think Pam may be coming forward to get this kicked off. Are you good with that, or were you?
I was not prepared.
Okay, well,
She looks a little surprised. She thought with B, I thought she was off for the evening.
well, yeah. So we discussed van pools last month here at the board meeting, and then again had a really kind of more in-depth conversation in planning and development in committee about it, really kind of drilling into how and why van pools could be profitable for Citilink, because there's the interplay between their operating performance and federal funding. And so these are the experts, and they're going to be able to walk us through how that happens. So welcome. I know Matthew, I think maybe you're taking point on this, but if you would like to maybe make a minute for each team member to introduce yourselves, maybe describe your role with Commute, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you, John. We appreciate the opportunity to chat with you all today. And again, thank you for your partnership. I'll go last, so I'll have Allison, Craig, and Cheryl just do a quick introduction since I'm going to run with most of the presentation and conversation today. So I will let Allison do a quick introduction to start.
I graduated from the University of Kentucky in 2023 and started with Enterprise that September. I initially started in the daily rental branches, and then after about a year, I went to the exotic car collection, which was super fun. And I began with Commute as the branch manager of operations in November of 2025. So a little bit recent, but essentially when Craig, the sales executive, gets the vans on the road, I go from there, make sure that we have good retention. I take care of day-to-day maintenance, ridership, everything just on the day-to-day. So it's so nice to meet you guys virtually.
Hi, everyone. My name is Craig Rack, Commute Sales Executive. I cover the state of Indiana, and I have been with Enterprise for 14 years at this point. The last 4.5 been in the commute space. So certainly been partnered together with Citilink and trying to expand the van pool program because there is quite a bit of opportunity. But looking forward to the conversation today.
I'm Cheryl O'Connor. I'm the corporate commute manager for our public sector. So what that means is I do sit in our global headquarters here in St. Louis, but I oversee the U.S. in trying to create, expand, or maintain these public-private partnerships. I've been in transportation for about 18 years and specifically working on van pools for the past 13 years. So Matt sits on my team, so I will kick it over to him since it is his show today anyway, as well.
Great. Thanks, Cheryl. So last but not least, my name is Matt Lynn. I'm our public sector account manager. And as what Cheryl said, I sit on our team specifically supporting the northern U.S. in creating or expanding our public-private partnerships. I've been in this role now for just about 3.5 years. And prior to that, I was doing the operations for our Southern New England territory, very similar to what Allison does locally for you all for about 4 years. And prior to that, I was on the car rental side for a total of 13 years with Enterprise Mobility, and really excited for the conversation today. I'll share my screen, hopefully pop up for you guys. Let me know when you can see that.
Yes, that's good.
All right, perfect. So real quick, what I wanted to start with is for those of you that might be unfamiliar with Commute is just to provide a 30,000-foot view of our program. So as it says in this slide, we're America's largest van pool service provider, and there's a lot of big numbers on this screen, but what I really wanted to draw your attention to is the number in the bottom right corner, which is our public transit agency partnership. So we have 120 agencies that we partner with all throughout the country, ranging from transit agencies, MPOs, COGs, and state DOTs that provide this as an extension of the public transit options that they currently provide to their community. And we wouldn't be able to accomplish these numbers without your support and with the partnerships that we have with Fort Wayne and Citilink here locally, and significant numbers when you look at commuter miles being reduced, pounds of CO2 emissions being reduced, and then the dollars that we're saving for the commuters that are participating in the program. So once again, just wanted to use this as an opportunity to thank you all for the partnership. And 72% of our van pools are actually tied to some sort of public agency partnership. So for those of you that were unfamiliar, just wanted to give that context. And what our partnership looks like and what we have with Citilink is it's fully a turnkey service. So what we mean by that is we provide the asset. So it could be anywhere from a 7 to 15 passenger vehicle, a minivan, SUV, or a transit van for those larger group of commuters, anywhere from 4 to 15 people that are commuting and share a similar commute. And they're either going to the same workplace or a similar destination where maybe it's a business park and there's multiple employers in the same area where their schedules line up. And we provide that full service, including maintenance, insurance, ongoing support from both Craig and Allison, invoicing, providing all of our partners with NTD data and reporting as prescribed by the FTA, and overall just making sure they're set up for success. We want to make sure the van poolers are supported And if something happens, like an accident, they're set up with roadside assistance, or if, the vehicle breaks down or what have you, we provide a loaner vehicle to them so that they're on the road, they can get to work in a reliable fashion. And, we have a fuel card option as well, so they can easily split that cost amongst the group and split that on one single invoice. So landscape here in Indiana, locally, to start in your market, we currently have 15 active van pools that's actually start in Fort Wayne that are providing valuable service to just about 84 residents that are commuting from Allen County outbound to these two different employers, both Byrne Apparel and Miller Poultry. Byrne Apparel is going to an adjacent county, Wells County. So there is potentially an opportunity that we're going to talk about here in a little bit to bring that van pool into your program, which we're really excited about, and be able to further expand the program from there. And just in general, van pools are long distance commuters. They're folks that can't take fixed route and on average going 30 to 40 miles one way. So because of, those circumstances, they just can't access fixed route. So this is another option and another tool in your toolkit to be able to deploy. We're also partnered with 3 other public agencies in Indiana that you can see on the screen here. So MACOG in South Bend, Greater Lafayette Public Transportation Corporation in Lafayette, and CERTA in Indianapolis. So you guys are not the only ones that are currently operating this service in the state, but we're really excited to grow your program together. I'll let Craig, I'll stop talking and let Craig cover the next couple here.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So when we start to look at the territory in which we currently have the ability to implement some of the van pools, what you're currently looking at and the way that we go about determining what's a good fit for a van pool group, we really start to target some of the employers. And what that looks like is employers in a certain industry and an employee count. So in Allen County specifically, what you're looking at, we'll look at an expanded version here in a second. We see the opportunity of about 50 employers. Now, I did rule out some of the employers that might have off shifts that aren't really going to match up quite nicely like we would like your Walmarts, Myers, grocery stores, where they're going to have a lot of employees but rotating schedules. When we look at the impact that we can make, the average score, what we're looking at from that standpoint, we're looking at the industry type, and then we're also looking at the actual employee count at these. We look for employers with more than 250 employees. And what's going to really make a very good, robust van pool program with some of these employers is going to be the folks who walk in the same door at the same time and walk out the door at the same time. So a couple just to think about would be some of our healthcare partners in the area, some of our manufacturers specifically. Matt, if you can take a look at the next slide. As we start to expand that territory, and a few others have done it here in Indiana, we essentially double the opportunity to help those folks. What we have found specific to the area is exactly what Matt had said. The employers who are looking to hire Allen County residents, they've got a long commute ahead of them, or there's even folks and employees who live outside of the county coming right downtown to Fort Wayne. So I think by doubling the opportunity, we've got an opportunity to really start to impact some, not only residents going inbound, but outbound as well.
Thanks, Craig. So this map does a great way of illustrating where van pool fits in the overall transportation puzzle. As illustrated, you can see on this map here, obviously you have your demand response, you have your bus routes, and what van pool does a great job of is filling in those gaps, as I mentioned earlier, and really touching those pockets of underserved areas of the community that are either in a transit desert because of where they live or work, or their shifts don't line up to be able to access fixed route for whatever their circumstances may be. So truly, the van pool program is simply complementing the current system that you all have at Citilink and providing another option that is customizable to the commuters that are using our service to be able to get transportation access. So this slide here, I promise, is not as intimidating as it may look, but it just talks about the program structure. And as you can see in the middle here, Citilink is currently providing a $700 subsidy per van per month. which is strictly buying down that cost for the commuters in our program. So that money isn't going to Commute with Enterprise as profit. It strictly buys down that monthly cost for the commuters and the employers that are participating in the program, whether there is an employer benefit or whether the employees are splitting the entire cost of the van pool service per van per month. That's up to the employer work site each individually. And then when you go down to taking that money off of the top, Craig, as you mentioned, has conversations with all those employers that might want to participate, whether they're having workforce, retention or recruitment issues, or there's a parking issue, or they're looking at sustainability goals, whatever the case may be, and deciding if they want to offer a pre-tax or direct subsidy benefit additionally to buy down that cost for their commuters. At the end, whatever that remaining cost is, will be split amongst the commuters that are in the van pool itself. And in doing so, we provide that full turnkey service, as I noted, as well as all of that NTD data that the feds prescribe for the monthly MR20 reports, as well as the annual NTD reporting, which in turn, as John mentioned earlier, drives your federal funding back to Citilink. And I'll get into that here in a little bit. So this is just a sample invoice, again, of using rough numbers. It does vary based on the type of vehicle you choose. So again, if you're in a base model minivan or SUV versus a fully loaded 15-passenger transit van that has built-in Wi-Fi, captain's chairs, leather seat, it's going to be a different price point. And obviously, it depends based on how far they're traveling because of the fuel expenses, because of depreciation, maintenance, all those things are included in that monthly fare. So just as an example, using that $700 subsidy provided by Citilink, you could look at an all-in roughly cost of about $1,800. Subtracting that $700 subsidy buys that down to just $1,100 now remaining, which the employer decides to contribute further. In this example, they're fully covering the remaining difference. But if not, the remaining cost would be split amongst the commuters that are in the van pool itself. So as I mentioned just a second ago, the information that we collect and compile for all of our 120 public agency partnerships goes through the National Transit Database, and it does increase the funding that comes back and flows back to Citilink. And that money can be used for a whole host of things, both operating and capital expenses. So it is flexible in the way that you spend that money. You can purchase a bus with that money. Obviously, we'd love for you to just put that all back into the van pool program and grow that. But what you'll come to find here is it's covering above and beyond the investments based on the funding that is generated for the program. So these are the data unit values. So this is where we get our calculations. And I know that John shared a more in-depth analysis that really breaks through the calculations of these numbers here. But based on your population size, the feds publish the data unit values for your vehicle revenue miles, the 5307 formula funds, as well as your 5339, which is the bus and bus facilities passenger incentive tier. So it looks at a couple different ways to calculate funding, which is primarily driven by the 5307 formula funding, which is about 82 cents per vehicle revenue mile reported. And then the other formulas are a little smaller, but I'll get into that here in the breakout that John provided. So the looking at that one van pool that I mentioned that currently is an adjacent county that we could look at potentially bringing into the program. Based on the current commute of the vehicle itself, it would increase the FTA funds, both on the 5307 and the bus incentive tier, of $23,864 annually. When you subtract out that $700 a month subsidy cost just across that one unit, it would be about $15,400 in net funding that would be generated as a result of the program. And I know I did forecast out looking at, again, some of the opportunities that Craig highlighted earlier, and knowing that your residents and folks are commuting both in and out of Allen County at a further distance. There is an opportunity, we think realistically, to grow to 7 van pools within a year, potentially 13 at the end of 2 years in working with some of the adjacent counties, which would increase at 13 van pools about $200,000 above and beyond that subsidy cost that I provided, that I showed earlier, $700 per van per month. And I did want to save some time for Q&A here at the end. This is the last slide that I had before turning over to you all for some questions is, if this is, the next step for you all would be obtaining approval from City Council to be able to coordinate with Allen County and the surrounding counties to look at expanding this service. And then from there, we'd love to sort of hit the reset button, relaunch the program with some of the employers that could see value in this program. Craig can go back to some of the employers he's had conversations with prior, where maybe there wasn't a solution because it was intra Allen County, both starting and ending. And as we illustrated earlier, commuters are traveling quite a further distance, whether they're employees that are commuting in or residents commuting out. So there is an opportunity truly to grow the program and serve more of your community, ultimately, which would increase the NTD, the FTA funding for Citilink, and just create additional options for the commuters in Allen County. So that's all I had there. I will turn it back over to you, John, and give your board an opportunity to ask any questions you had on anything we presented today.
So just a quick wrap up to say that it's a good fortune that Justin Klepper is here in the room today from CTN. A couple years back, CTN led a regional assessment on transportation needs in Northeast Indiana. And CTN was a partner in that. And the need for a regional van pool program emerged as one of the recommendations from that study. And so this is all about connecting the region to jobs here in Allen, or connecting local citizens to jobs in the adjacent counties. And so again, our path is to go to City Council for approval of extending our territory, and then from there work with Allen County and adjacent counties on writing interlocal agreements. What questions do you have while we've got commute folks here?
I have a question. How does the van pool benefit financially Citilink? Where does the funds come from? You know,
Sure.
I don't really understand that part of it.
Yeah,
It's kind of new to me.
Well, it kind of gets into our funding sources, which are public funding is a whole area where we could spend a whole meeting focused on that. Maybe we should someday. So federal formula funds are apportioned to Citilink in each federal budget each year based upon the metrics that we report in what's called the National Transit Database, or the NTD report. Mm-hmm. And so that formula uses all of those inputs to allocate funding to Citilink for those Section 5307, which is urbanized formula, and then 5339, which is bus and bus facilities formula. And so increased metrics like revenue miles and passenger counts bring additional dollars back. Yeah. And so
So it's mostly for the funding and not necessarily for the charges that are being charged each month. It's mostly for grants and funding.
Exactly. We would, the funding that we would receive would more than offset the investment in the van pool program. Yeah, there is a 2-year lag on that, however, so it's important that we remember that when we report data for the NTD, for example, for 2025, we're going to be filing that report by April 30th. It takes some time for that to get processed and then into the congressional formula for the 2028 budget. So there's a 2-year lag.
Right. Thank you.
We don't collect passenger fares, right?
Yeah.
So we actually don't receive money from any source except for the federal government for this process.
Okay.
We actually pay the 700, but then it's twofold back to us.
Right, of federal dollars.
Right.
Right, I thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no, it's confusing. Yeah.
But that made it a little bit easier to understand, because I was thinking that they draw revenue from the cost of those fares that they're charging in the van. Okay, thank you.
One thing about this relationship that we have, Enterprise is really the expert, so the commute team knows how to operate turnkey van pool programs around the state, and they deliver us a solution really that's turnkey. They handle all the marketing and business development relationships with employers and negotiate separate contracts with each employer that identifies after our subsidy how much the employer will contribute and then how much the participants will contribute. And what's really great about this relationship is that it's been proven to be profitable in all the other markets where they're working with public transit agencies based upon this impact on the formula. And again, it's turnkey, which means our staff commitment and staff involvement is pretty light. I mean, other than monitoring the contract and being there when we need to be, to show up for lawyers or to help coordinate with elected officials.
Thank you.
I have a question. How is our contribution determined, and will that ever go up?
Can you guys answer that question?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, that's a great point. So, right now, the subsidy that you all provide is right around our national average. It's actually slightly above. In Indiana, your colleagues are all providing around $700 as well. In South Bend and City Bus, I believe, is providing $6. Currently considering an increase there. And what really drives that subsidy level nationally and across all of our partners is cost. And as you can imagine, as I'm sure you've seen with bus, the prices of vehicles have gone up. The prices of fuel has gone up. Obviously, I heard John talk about that recently now, given what's going on worldwide. So those factors have over time increased the total cost for the commuter that's participating in our program. In fact, the subsidy level that has been provided has also increased in comparison with that. So if you look about, let's say, 4 or 5 years ago, the average subsidy was about $500. And in the last couple of years, it's increased to $600. And now in the future, we're seeing the trend starting to go to the $700 plus range in many markets, just because of where the total cost of vehicles are, the cost of insurance, maintenance, repair cost of the vehicles, because as John mentioned, it's a full turnkey service, and all of that's included in that monthly fare. And then the offset that's provided by you all really helps drive that participation in the program to make it affordable for the commuter.
So our subsidy is locked into a contract, and I can go back. We'll need to go back and look to see what escalation language is there.
So it's determined as part of a contract. It's not like a fixed percentage of costs or 50% of something, or it's just determined in a contract.
It is. It's a negotiating item between community and city.
Yeah, so the contract that we have now, when does that get renegotiated?
We'll gladly get that date for you. I think we're heading into the 5th year. So we'll get that date. We signed the modification to a year or two ago. Yeah, let's get that for you.
Well, some of the questions I have are along the lines of, the partnership with Citilink is for you guys to get the federal subsidy and kind of help on that. And I guess, is there anything barring you guys today from doing multi-county ride commute-like services without a partnership with Citilink? And I'm just trying to understand why you couldn't do that today versus or if you can, and what the partnership kind of provides you guys.
Matt, do you want to take that, or do you want me to take it?
Oh, you can take it, Cheryl.
Yeah, I mean, we can provide van pool service anywhere in the country. We prefer to be partnered with our local public transportation entities to do all the great things that folks have talked about in the meeting today. And when we go out to employers, when Craig is developing those van pools, it just shows a total transportation solution, that partnership between us as a company providing public transit partnered with a local entity. It just makes the program that much more successful. Then, if we didn't have the partnership, those numbers wouldn't be reported to the National Transit Database. So it helps out Citilink. It's helping to drive down the cost to the end user so that they can access a reliable form of public transit that works better with their schedule or where they live, where they work, what have you. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, are you operating currently any multi-county commute vehicles right now that are in these current counties that we're talking about partnering with you?
Not surrounding Allen County. We have been working with CERTA down in Indianapolis, Lafayette, you all there in Fort Wayne, and the legislature the jurisdictional boundary legislation was hampering growth. And Lafayette, quick history on the legislation, it stated that entities like yourselves could only use money to help fund services, whether it's bus or rail or van pools within your county. Lafayette actually a couple of years ago got the language changed to be a little bit less restrictive and more population based. And so we worked with our lobbyist and Citilink's lobbyist to further change that legislation to further unrestrict growth opportunities, and we're able to do that about a year ago. And so that piece of legislation was really hampering us from growing Vanpool in the state. And now that has been changed, we're seeing a lot of growth in some of those other areas, and we hope to see more growth in the greater Fort Wayne area as well.
So then for the sake of Allen, DeKalb, Steuben, like that kind of stuff, you guys currently aren't operating any Vanpool related services that cross county lines today?
Yeah, we are.
It's not in your area, but
yeah, well, sorry, maybe I misunderstand the question. If I'm understanding you correctly, we have vans that are going from Allen County to Steuben and to Dwells currently. We have 15 van pools that are currently operating out of your territory, but because one of them's bringing 14 vans 2 counties across, I think that's Steuben, and one is going to Wells County. The Wells County van, we are hoping to loop that into your van pool with this legislation change in coordination of an MOU with Wells County. But the other one, I think, based on how the language is written, I don't know if it could cross 2 counties. It has to be adjacent to Allen County.
let me make the delineation there. Those are operating, but they're not receiving the Citilink subsidy, correct, Matt?
That's correct. Yep.
So,
and I thought that was a question. Yeah.
Yep. We do have vans at Crisscross, like vans down in our Indianapolis program. They crisscross van pools because of the structure of their entity, how they can work regionally. We also have a agreement with MACOG in South Bend, and due to the fact that they cover multiple counties, that law that was restricting us in your area didn't apply to those. And then we also have vans that are crossing those counties, but they're not receiving a subsidy from any public sector partner because of that restrictive law. Very clear as mud, right? Like in some areas we're able to, other areas we're not.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Well, thank you all very much for joining us, and appreciate your presentation today. You're welcome to stay if you like, but we will understand if you need to hop on. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Everyone, thank you.
Boy, must not be very interesting. I don't blame them. I don't think we're going to get any Oscar nominations. Okay, let's go to the new business. Action item authorize FY 2025 Section 5310 grant awards.
I'm going to ask Patrick Rourke to come forward. Patrick presented to the Planning and Development Committee last month, but many of you may not have met Patrick. He is our Grants and Procurement Coordinator working with Latasha, and so has taken on the task of managing the 5310 program. And so Patrick has this presentation. Patrick.
Thank you. Just a quick kind of rundown of how this process worked. Back in the end of 2025, we launched a call for projects, which is where you'll see these items coming from. And that call for projects was advertised in December, and we ran that into February. And this cycle, we have $437,565 in unobligated funds from the FTA for this program. 55% FTA wants 55% to go towards traditional sources, which is capital, such as vehicle purchases. 45% can go for non-traditional, such as operating assistance and then program administration. And in the breakdown provided, we go ahead and break it down by operating assistance, which is $153,148 to CTN, program administration, which is 10%, $43,756 for Citilink with that. And then capital vehicle purchases is $240,661. And we split that up with 2 replacement vehicles for CTN and 1 expansion vehicle for Easter Seals. This went before the Planning and Development Committee, and the recommendations for the Planning and Development Committee are at the bottom of the page, with the awards to CTN for operating and vehicle, and then the award to Easter Seals for their expansion vehicle.
So this was presented to the Planning and Development Committee, and we voted to recommend approval. So I just put that here as a recommendation from Mark.
Any questions? Oh, now I'll accept a motion. Mr. Rivera?
Move to approve.
Got a motion by Sharice, a second by Nelson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, same sign. That will show that is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also want to acknowledge a guest, Stacy Duell from Easter Seals is here today as well. So thank you for your application. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
We'll be working to obligate the funds and get these dollars moving.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Okay. Next item under old business is action item is purchase order for 3 Citilink hybrid electric buses. Jason. You're right.
I don't really have anything prepared to.
We thought you were, last time I saw you were in California. So
Yeah, so I don't really have any kind of information prepared to answer any questions you may have. I can give a brief description of where the current ones are at and then kind of what's coming up. So Matt and I went out to California to inspect the buses that were coming off the line. And we had a bit of a disappointment when we got out there that the buses were not fully finished as they were coming off the line. There was a lot of issues with windows and seats and a few other items that were not, they had not been delivered yet. There's a shortage essentially. So our inspections were very limited. We weren't able to test drive 2 of the 3 buses, and we took an abbreviated test drive on the 3rd bus. So while I was out there, I was able to speak with a third-party inspector, and they agreed to inspect those buses as they were coming off the line, or as they were being finished, whenever that may be. I also spoke with our rep from Gillig, and they agreed to pay for that service, since we essentially wasted our time going out there to look at buses that weren't complete. So there has been a good bit of discussion back and forth with that, and we have definitely relayed our disappointment with that situation. Unfortunately, there's not a lot that anybody can do about it. They don't necessarily know with much advance notice that they're going to have delays. They do have a few days worth, but we can't really book trips based on only a couple of days notice. It takes longer to book a trip to California than just a few days notice. So in the future, until some of these issues get resolved, I'll be utilizing a third-party inspection service to do that. So we're not going out there and spending a lot of savings of time and money to inspect buses that may or may not be fully built when they come off the line. Since then, we have received 1 of the 3 buses. It showed up about a week ago with some minor issues, nothing that's outside of the ordinary. They always show up with some little small issues. We had a check engine light, a few other little small issues, but Gillig will come out and address those. The other two buses are, one of them broke down in transit. So it was in New Mexico when that happened. And as far as I'm aware, it is still in New Mexico being worked on. And the third one is still at Gillig, getting its issues resolved before they ship it out.
Thank you, Jason. And then on tonight's agenda, we're requesting that the board authorize us to write a purchase order for the next 3 buses. And we believe we will come back again within a few months to go ahead and place an order for the next 3 buses. So Gillig, there's a lot of disruption in the industry. Prior to 2020 with the COVID pandemic, there were 8 U.S. bus manufacturers in this market, and now there are only 2. So cost inflation and supply chain concerns still are affecting the U.S. bus manufacturing industry. And the lead time on an order is a year to a year and a half to 2 years. So we'll write if you approve this today, we will write a purchase order and probably see these buses in 2028. And then that's why we would like to go ahead and order a next round so we can get on their production schedule for the next year. All of these buses are funded with a federal discretionary grant that we received, applied for and received in 2024 under the federal low and zero emission program. And so 85% of the cost is covered by that federal grant. These are our hybrid diesel electric buses that have the geofencing capability for battery electric operation. So the bus can operate purely on electric power within certain territories. So for example, if we want to lower emissions in the downtown area or in a vulnerable neighborhood, we can geofence code that in our routing, and the bus will operate purely on battery power there. So tonight's request is to authorize the purchase of 3 Gillig buses at a price per vehicle. Where is this? Yeah. $1,174,073 per vehicle. $1,174,073. In the packet, there's kind of at the back of the packet, there's some specification pages that contains Gillig's quote. And we usually provide the board with the full specification, so you can, if you're curious about.
4 pages from the back.
Okay.
Need that
Thank
tell the
you.
price and so on and so forth.
Thank you.
Like this.
Under the low dose, we need to purchase the hybrid or the all-electric, correct?
Correct.
We can't purchase the diesel.
So what we have found is that in some cases, the FTA is allowing transit agencies to convert their LONO awards to diesel buses. However, our grant was already obligated for hybrids, and so we kind of missed that opportunity. The example is in Lafayette, where they received a grant the same year we did to build hydrogen fuel cell buses, and they have a fueling facility built on their property. It's a really cool project, but also a very risky project. That had not yet been obligated, and they've worked it to get lower cost standard diesel buses.
I'll just add that I was just at the public transit conference in Philadelphia this past week. And I mean, the availability of buses, the tariffs were a huge topic of discussion. Thankfully, and I was just pulling the opinion up, the tariffs were pulled back. I'm sure you're all aware of that. But it still leaves to question. I mean, the Supreme Court threw it back to Congress and said, if you want to give the president the authority, basically, to do this, you can. But as of right now, he does not have it. And in fact, it was his Gorsuch, one of his appointees, who said, sometimes we have to think about we might like the person that's making the decisions today, but you may not like who it is tomorrow. And so you know, just because it fits your agenda, which was kind of interesting to see from a Trump appointee giving that opinion. But the bus industry representatives who were there were saying, look, if this comes back to us, we have to pass the cost on. You know, and so that includes some of these grants that are already allocated. There's just no way. And supporters of that said, yeah, we've only got 2 left. We want them to stay. Otherwise, we're just not going to have buses, you know, or it's just going to be nearly impossible to get them. So, yeah.
Yeah, you know, there's competing regulation because we federally have to, we need to follow the federal Buy American provision, which means that buses are, you know, bus and bus components are made in the United States, and the bus assembly occurs in the U.S. And so without our industry supporting Citilink and New Flyer are the 2 companies, if we lose one of them, it'll be a risk to the industry.
But if I could just add one other real point of interest, the lead time for these buses is getting so long. I think John mentioned that it was like a year and a half. It's closer to 2 years. We were lucky enough to get Citilink on their build sheet for late 2027, which will be the buses that you guys will be voting on shortly, received in early 2028. And then John also mentioned we may be coming back to you here shortly with an additional request for the next round because of how long it takes to get some buses in 2029 or possibly later in 2028, depending on when we're able to get on the board.
And not to continue to be a ray of sunshine, but another part of that discussion was that that you know, the FTA is proposing cuts overall to their budgets. They're only increasing the budget for, and not the FTA, Congress, increasing budgets for highway funds. Certainly there are plenty of proponents to increase funding. However, all of this impacts the grant funds, including funds that have already been allocated, particularly for discretionary projects that are being delayed. And when we had that 400,000 sitting out, and so as I was talking to the FTA representatives about that, the question they kept saying was, oh, is that in the discretionary fund? You know, like that might not work out for you. And I'm like, yeah, but it's allocated. They were like, and they also basically said, look, our staff has been cut by over 30%. We have 5 lawyers for the whole region of like the northern half of the state. And so kind of good luck. Thankfully, you signed your letters to, you know, Congressman Stutzman and Young. And so while I was there, John and I were communicating, and the grant was processed. It was also the first time I've ever seen chief counsel for the FTA, this was my 5th year, attend. And it changed the tone in the room, I will tell you that, at least for the FTA employees. They didn't speak at all last year. This year, they were very like, and whatever he says, you know? And so just kind of, it's an interesting dynamic, so.
What was their reasoning for the holdup of the funds?
Well, they don't talk a lot about the reasoning. And the undertone is that the president has pulled back all kinds of funding that have, you know, since he took office, and withheld it, which is why there are so many lawsuits pending against the administration right now, because traditionally, and Conrad can tell you this, he cannot undo an act of Congress that's already been done, right? Congress carries the purse strings, they issue funding.
That's what we thought.
Yes, right. Well, and I mean, that kind of just happened with the tariffs, a little different, but he has been allowed to move forward with some, not with others. But so a lot of this money is already tied up, right? It's already been obligated, but it was clear to me that these attorneys have been told not to distribute anything unless it's either carefully looked at or approved by someone higher up. So even with these, you know, these buses that we're looking at for 2028, I mean, I think the ball's kind of up in the air based on the information that I received. So
the good news on these buses, these Latasha and Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, do we have the full 11 million obligated in that grant? We do? Okay.
And distributed?
Not distributed, but it is obligated, which means, in essence, it's ours to spend. And I've never seen FTA pull back an already obligated grant. The challenge with the underground storage tank project, that 400,000, is we couldn't get the grant across the obligation finish line with FTA because of the environmental review. There was a lengthy environmental review on the project. And it took us, almost 2 years to get through that process. And our argument with FTA was the project is fully contained within an existing transportation facility. So therefore, it should receive a categorical exclusion on the environmental review. It should have been a rubber stamp. Congressional interest in further discussion on that topic through our federal lobbying efforts. Senator Banks is, I was told, is supporting changes to that federal process for environmental review for transit projects. And it was Representative Stutzman who moved this for us. We weren't sure because Kyle signed the letter on Thursday. I emailed it on Friday. By Monday, early afternoon, we had the grant obligated. I was saying to Rachel, you're a magician, like you're magic.
I literally emailed the chief counsel a half an hour earlier. I spoke to him the night before and I was like, John's like, it just got obligated. I'm like, no way. So I went up to him and I said, I gotta ask you, did you have anything to do with that? He was like, no. He did say, if you have any problems in the future, let me know. But I was like, oh.
I would have just said that it was your doing.
I know, I should have just ran with it right now.
It truly was Representative Stutzman's staff. And so I think when we have an opportunity, when he's in here, we'll community with him and thank him for that. So both staffers for both Senator Banks and Senator Young also expressed their full support. They were moving on this, but I heard from them after the grant was obligated. It happened that fast, and I said, thanks, we've got it. Appreciate your support. So this is, yeah, this was an example.
I said, you guys know how to work miracles.
Yeah, it took an act of Congress to get this grant obligated.
We just had $5,000 contribution to Stutzman. We got to figure out how to talk about the budget now.
That's true.
You don't want to say that too loud.
Not what public's like.
Yeah.
Stroking, Conrad was stroking.
And if anybody's listening does not understand that, then you probably should not open your mouth any further or get checked for other issues. Okay, so we still need a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion by Sharice, a second by Nelson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify so by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. We'll look forward to those buses in 2 years.
Yes, thank you.
So is the other bus, is it outside now?
No,
it's
it's at the garage.
At the garage. So you got it last week?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we'll stop by and see it.
Yeah.
We'll wait for the other one to get towed from New Mexico.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll bring it along because there's nothing like that new bus smell. We like to say that.
It's just like a car. I remember that. We rode that one. I don't know the last one. I don't remember when it came here.
It's a real thing.
Yeah. Communication from the public. I don't believe anybody's filed any timely or untimely. Board of Directors open discussion.
I just have some questions about particularly the fixed route service and the when it comes to Tidewater, some of the stuff that we have is a on-time percentage rate that we're trying to pull from them. And we're trying to get, they said somewhere in the 90s or something like that. I guess for our fixed route transit, what's our on-time rate? How do we track that? And what's our benchmark for that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna see if Pam, who has the data, can help us with that. I will say that It's in our APC system and our Equan system that gives us that. Can you speak to this question?
Yeah, so the on-time performance for fixed route runs around 76% right now.
Yeah.
Our goal is to hit, I believe we've set at 85%, which is higher than the national average. We're running around the national average at 75 to 76%. I think it's actually 78%. But we've been working toward increasing that with these route changes and making the routes more efficient.
Sure. What is the largest, like, so you say 70% is kind of where we're at today, right? Yeah, so of the 30%, what's the makeup of the things that are particularly like causing the delays?
It can be any number of things. A lot of construction in Fort Wayne will cause the delays on the route, and that's really a big thing. Weather can cause it. When we were going through driver shortages, that was causing it as well because we were having to find drivers to drive the route. So on some routes, we'd have to sit for an hour before we get back out on the road. So.
Okay.
If I can jump into one factor that can be at play, the data system called Equans that sets up the routing and the bus stops, there's room for us to fine tune the time points that a bus should arrive at a given time point, which can impact on-time performance. In other words, the system, if there's an error for a bus stop, and there are 1,100 bus stops in the system, if we've got the timing wrong on a stop, it can be an impact. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so in essence, it could leave on time from Central Station and arrive back on time at Central Station, but at some point through the route, it was late to a particular stop, and that can affect the on-time performance.
It's a little less easy to measure than paratransit service, where you have an origination and a destination.
Sure.
And there are so many factors, as was mentioned. Construction, dwell time varies. That's the time that we sit at the bus stop for a rider to board. If somebody's using a wheelchair, then it takes a little additional time. A lot of variables in play. Is that your only question?
No, I rode the bus here today, and so one of the train, the overlapping thing was part of the reason why the two route was like 24 minutes behind schedule. I think that's kind of like normal or whatever, and I just was kind of making me wondering. I was like, well, it's like what is the on time, right? Like, what are some things that can happen, like a wreck happens or some stop takes an extra long time, that can obviously slow down the service. And so I was just kind of wondering in general, like, what's our KPI in terms of on time, right? Where and then, typically, like, how are we hitting that or not? And then how's that? So that was the nature of some question that kind of was kind of sparked that. And additionally, with the transit app, one of the questions I had is, are we going to federate in the GPS location of the buses so that you can kind of see it on there?
Yes, and we are waiting. Is this due to, because I noticed this the other day, I was using transit and didn't see the bus location. Is that because of the GTFS update?
Yes.
Okay, so the software is still awaiting Google approval, is that right? Yeah, Google has to approve our system. And then you'll see that. So it's only displaying the scheduled time right now,
okay,
and not the real-time information.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be like, almost like we're in an Uber, you see it coming, how
Yes.
far away it is.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Because I kept trying to, I was surprised I'm trying to find it, but I called it. So.
You can go, so our website has a bus tracker on it also, which is done. Is that working?
I believe it is working out.
It is.
Yeah. It is.
If you go on the homepage, there's literally, it says track my bus right on the front, and you can click it and you can see in real time where it's at.
Yeah, because that's drawn directly from Equans,
From
is that right?
yes.
So yeah, and so that is available to riders for today. If you're curious about where your bus is, go there.
Thank you.
Anything else?
adjourned. Thank you, everybody.